Thank you very much. I am really honored to be here amongst all of you. And I'm so sorry that I could not make it. I was supposed to be there in person. But I missed my plane. One of those stupid things that happens in life, and it happened to me. Uh, um, sir, I was waiting for the people of Pakistan to actually raise this themselves. I was so upset, the first group of the refugees that were sent to Afghanistan. I was so upset that I cannot tell you how disgusted, how upset, how angry I really was about what happened. I could not believe that actually a neighbor of ours, a neighbor of any neighbor, especially a neighbor like Pakistan, for God's sakes, they can do something like that to Afghanistan at the time of, it's not like Pakistan does not know where Afghanistan is. They have a hand in bringing everything that it is happening in Afghanistan. They all have a hand, and they had a hand from the beginning. So, they know it. And here we are, with the Taliban, with the way our economy is, with the way the whole situation is, with the way, and then sending hundreds and thousands of refugees that were legally supposed to be in Pakistan, most of them. And they live their lives there, and they have their children that have gone to school, and they have a life there, and they made a life for themselves, and send them back to Afghanistan. And as you all know, that Afghanistan was not ready, because United Nations was not ready to help these refugees the way they were supposed to kind of reestablish them in Afghanistan and give them the assistance that they needed. And then having a government in Afghanistan that, although maybe they are trying, maybe they are not, because that's also one of those things that is not very clear to us, that for reestablishing them in Afghanistan. But I don't know whether they really care deeply or not. I don't think so. So right now we are kind of living in a world, including my country, that not the people of the country, because this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to separate the beings, the people of each country, like the Pakistanis from the Pakistan government, like Hindustanis from the Hindustan government, like the US, the Americans, from the American government. I'm trying to separate all of this, honestly, because if I don't separate them, if I don't in my mind, then this world is not a place for any human being to be living in anymore. We are in a very bad place. Things are happening in such a way that we are going towards a complete chaos, and we are giving ourselves to this chaos, and we are letting it take over our lives. And that is what's happening in Gaza, for example. And that is horrible. It's terrible. And the whole thing, the way it happened in Afghanistan also, and keeps on happening and keeps on continuing. And if you raise your voice, and if you say something, and if you want to change it, and if you want to correct it, and if you want to ask the government, please, this is not the way to go about it, you're either a traitor or you're a nuisance, and the world does not want to listen to you, and you should not be talking about these things. But that's not what it is, and you know that. But I was really waiting to get some kind of a reaction from the Pakistani people. That's why I love Asma Jahangir's gatherings, because that's what actually brings these questions to its point, and brings it to the people, and says, this is the kind of questions that the people of Pakistan should be asking their government. That what is going on? Why are we doing this? And I'm glad that I heard that from all of you. I don't think you have any answer for us, and I don't believe that we have any answer to give. But here we are. You know the situation much better. There is no point for me to give you numbers. There is no point for me to tell you how miserable everybody is. There is no point for me to tell you how terrible the whole situation is in this country now, with all of the refugees coming, and how their lives are, and how they're trying to cope, and they really cannot, and it's really hard, and they're doing their best. And oh my gosh, it's like I don't know how many of them I'm supposed to be talking about it and how much, and if I give you numbers, will that make it any different? To me, it doesn't, because it's hundreds and thousands of humanity and human beings going through absolutely a miserable time because some governments, they decide to do what they decide to do. Thank you.
Okay. Mehbooba Jan, thank you very much. That was a really heartfelt appeal to the Pakistani people to support the presence of Afghan refugees in Pakistan. I'm going to ask now the Deputy Representative of UNHCR, the Human Rights Commission, to come to speak, please. And I'd like to remind everyone that you only have 5 minutes each. We have a long list of speakers, and we want to get everyone in. So, UNHCR representative. No, wherever you like.
Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be on this panel. In a world where millions of people are displaced from their houses due to old and new conflicts, and where refugees are being labeled as burden, as terrorists, where political solutions are in short supply, we need voices, and I appreciate and acknowledge and pay tribute to all the voices who are expressing their views, who are speaking out for refugee rights across the world. I would like to appreciate and acknowledge the people and government of Pakistan for hosting Afghan refugees for the last 40 years. And despite the fact that Pakistan is not signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention and its protocol, still the people and the government, they have supported Afghan refugees. And there are challenges, their own economic challenges, their own issues in Pakistan, but still. And we are appealing to the government to continue to provide this support to Afghan refugees who are living here. We have basically different types of, different categories of Afghan refugees in Pakistan. The one who are holding proof of registration cards, POR cards, who are, well, like, there are 1.3 million Afghan refugees, they are living here. And then there are some 800,000 people who are holding Afghan citizen cards in Pakistan, and they were registered in 2017. In 2021, after the developments in Afghanistan, according to government estimates, some 600,000 people came to Pakistan, and they are living here. And last month, the government initiated this plan to ask Afghan refugees and the asylum seeker to go back to Afghanistan, and we actually opposed that plan. And we actually express our concern that nobody leave their house by choice. They are compelled, they are living here, and we need to continue to provide our support to these people because they need our support. And we need to see these people through a humanitarian lens rather than a political lens, because they are the victim of war and they are not the perpetrators. They are here, they are seeking asylum in Pakistan. So that's why we have been asking the government to come up with a plan, with a comprehensive plan to register these asylum seekers in Pakistan. But the government is not supportive of accepting new people in Pakistan. And we have provided, thank you. So we have asked the government that we are ready to support, to provide technical support, to provide financial support to the government so that we can register these people. And because the situation in Afghanistan is not satisfactory, it is imperative the state has the right to regulate its laws, to implement its laws, to regulate its border. But keeping in view the situation in Afghanistan, the human rights situation in Afghanistan is particularly related to girls and women. These people cannot go back to Afghanistan. We should not be sending these people if their lives or freedom are at stake in Afghanistan or at risk in Afghanistan. So we are asking the government, we are appealing to the government to continue to provide support to these people. Otherwise, it would be very risky for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask now Patricia Grossman, who's online behind me, I hope. She's Associated Director, Human Rights Watch in New York. She's been concerned with the Afghan situation ever since I can remember, which is at least 40 years ago, at the time of the Soviet invasion. She's been a stalwart defender of Afghan people's rights, and we are very fortunate to have her. Patricia, go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, and it's very nice to be here today. Thanks for the invitation. It's good to be connected with old friends. I'd like to start with just saying that, this isn't the first time we've seen this happen to Afghan refugees in Pakistan. It's a cyclical thing. And in 2016, we saw almost the same numbers we're seeing now. People coerced to leave for Afghanistan by many of the same means we're seeing now. Now it looks like the numbers may go much higher. And I'm very careful here not to say returned to Afghanistan, because in many cases, well, that's true for some, many cases, the people being forced to leave include Afghans that were actually born in Pakistan, who've lived their entire lives there, who built their lives there, and are now being coerced to leave through a whole range of abuses, detentions, seizures of the property, beatings, and so on. And if you look at the figures that come out from the updates from IOM and UNHCR, something like 90% report that fear of detention is the reason they're leaving. And of course, once that begins, then others feel the same fear, and you end up with this an exodus of people who are then leaving for, as Mahbub Sarraj pointed out, in a country where the economic situation is already in crisis. People arriving and are not able to take much money or property with them because of the way the Pakistani authorities prevent that. And so then arrive destitute and in a situation where already there aren't jobs, there aren't ways for people to make much of an income, going to villages where maybe they originated many, many years ago, but have very little. So we're adding to an already very catastrophic humanitarian situation in Afghanistan. Not to mention, of course, as already been said, those leaving for Afghanistan include families with girls who may have been in school in Pakistan who now will not have that opportunity in Afghanistan, women who may have been working or in university who will not be able to do so in Afghanistan. So it is really an unprecedented crisis. But I also want to point out that one of the reasons it's very difficult within the international community to put pressure on Pakistan in this regard is that other countries have also behaved just abysmally toward Afghan refugees. Many promises were made in Europe, in the US, to take in Afghans, particularly, of course, after the Taliban takeover. And we've seen really that those promises have not been met. I could point particularly to, say, Germany. At one point was saying they would be bringing in 1,000 Afghans a month. They've fallen so far short of that, and including many Afghans who are particularly at risk, journalists, human rights defenders, and the rest, who end up now, I know many, still stuck either in Afghanistan or in Pakistan in desperate circumstances and unable to find any safe pathways to resettlement elsewhere, despite all the promises by donor countries who supported all these efforts in Afghanistan over the last 22 years. So I'm going to keep it very short because I'm aware of the 5 minutes, but I would say that you have a complex humanitarian crisis now, both the abuses on the Pakistani border side, the failure of other countries to respond adequately, and of course, the situation in Afghanistan with the Taliban repression, making many of these people coming to Afghanistan now, returnees and others, at risk, and also at risk because of a very dire economic situation. So it needs an urgent response that we're not yet seeing from countries, concerned countries who should be stepping up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. That was very well put. It's really sad that wherever we look on this issue of Afghan refugees, it's a story of pity and incredible frustration and anger at the fact that after so many years the international community has virtually abandoned Afghan civil population and is not being able to fulfill their needs. We do understand that there are other phenomena going on, Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan, and many other places. But this does deserve more, perhaps from the more wealthy part of the globe. I'm going to ask next an activist, a Hazara activist, Fatma Asif. Atif, I'm going to ask her to come up to the stage, if she can. Oh, you want to speak? Come up here, I think. If you come up on the stage, people at the back will be able to hear you. At the moment, people are not hearing speakers at the back of the room. Let me just say to you that Hazaras have been the most persecuted, the most deeply affected population, both in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. And we are deeply ashamed at the way the Hazaras have been treated in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. And they are the number one ethnic group which needs to find a solution, which the world needs to find a solution and get them out of this present plight. Please, go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, I'd like to appreciate and thank Asma Jahangir Conference, who gathered such marvelous panelists over here to talk on the very important issue. Just talking about the issue that Afghan refugees, when they started coming to Pakistan, this issue was the one topic which was always ignored by the government and by the political parties. Some of them were like-minded who wanted to work just like Pakistan People's Party, but other parties, all of them were in a state of ignorance. And later on we saw that the expulsion of Afghan refugees showed us that this issue was taken over. Of course, this was in the hand of security establishment, but this was taken over very roughly, and during the era of interim government, the Afghans were forced to go back to their countries. Just to give you an overview that what could be the reasons, that there could be many reasons. Darparda to bahut sare wajuhat ho sakte hain, lekin the biggest problem which hinders is that there is no law in Pakistan जो अफ़गान रिफ्यूजीज़ के मसले को देख सके. और जिस तरह आफरीदी साहब ने बताया that we are not signatory of Geneva Convention 1951, अगर हम सिग्नेटरी होते तो हमें पाकिस्तान में भी कानून बनाने पर हमें मजबूर होना पड़ता, जो कि हम नहीं हैं. दूसरा ये कि सिक्योरिटी इस्टेब्लिशमेंट की विलिंगनेस नहीं है. देयर इज़ नो विलिंगनेस फ्रॉम सिक्योरिटी इस्टेब्लिशमेंट्स. That's why there is no law. There has been some temporary policy, and those policies were always not a complete policy. Those were just notifications maybe, or just very temporary and responsive decisions which were made by the certain governments in certain time and in certain situations. Just to throw back PMLN की गवर्नमेंट में ही फरवरी 2017 में कैबिनेट ने डिसाइड किया था कि अफ़गान रिफ्यूजीज़ के मसले पे कानून साजी की जाएगी, लेकिन वो और मसले बन गए और یہ آئیڈیا کولیپس کر گیا اور اس پہ کام نہیں ہوا. اینڈ دین عمران خان پبلکلی آلسو اسٹیٹڈ کہ پاکستان میں افغان شہریوں کو افغان ریفیوجیز کو شہریت دی جائے گی, اور بلکہ انہوں نے ایک پبلکلی اسٹیٹمنٹ بھی دیا تھا کہ افغان بچے جو یہاں پہ پیدا ہوں گے دے ول آلسو بی افغان سو پاکستانی. سو یہ آئیڈیا بھی میرا خیال ہے کولیپس ہی کر گیا, اور افغان ریفیوجیز کے حوالے سے ڈبل اسٹینڈرڈس کے حوالے سے کبھی بھی ان کو یہ اجازت نہیں ملی. جنرل ضیاء الحق صاحب کے دور میں دیکھا آپ نے کہ انصار اور مہاجرین کا ایک سلسلہ سامنے آیا, اور وہاں اس وقت بھی اسی ایک پالیسی کو جو افغان اور مہاجر والا تھا کہ ہم انصار ہیں وہ مہاجر ہے, اس کو ذہن میں رکھتے ہوئے کوئی پالیسی نہیں بنائی گئی. سو آئی ول بی کوئک کہ پوسٹ اگست 2021 کے بعد بارڈر پر بہت سارے مسائل ہوئے افغان ریفیوجیز کو یہاں آنے میں, اور انہوں نے برائب دے کر اور مختلف طریقوں سے اللیگل طریقوں سے بھی وہ پاکستان میں داخل ہوئے, اور اگست 2021 کے بعد وہ پاکستان میں اپنے تمام بنیادی حقوق سے محروم رہے, جس میں ان کے تعلیم, صحت, روزگار, صحت کے وسائل تک رسائی, ان تمام فیسلٹیز سے, بنیادی ضروریات سے وہ محروم رہے ہیں ابھی تک. اس میں رول آف UNHCR, ہمارے کولیگز یہاں پہ بیٹھے ہوئے UNHCR اور شارپ سے, اس میں بہت یہ 2.5 سال سے زیادہ کا عرصہ اس میں حکومت پاکستان کا, جس طرح آفریدی صاحب نے بتایا کہ حکومت پاکستان نے UNHCR کو منع کیا تھا کہ وہ افغان ریفیوجیز کو رجسٹر نہ کریں. بھئی اگر آپ خود رجسٹر نہیں کر سکتے, آپ کے پاس کیپیسٹی نہیں ہے, تو پھر آپ ایسی ریفیوجیز پہ جو کام کرنے والی انٹرنیشنل آرگنائزیشنز ہیں تو ان کو آپ یہ اختیار دے کہ وہ یہ کام کریں. مہاجرین اسلام آباد میں نیشنل پریس کلب کے باہر 6 ماہ تک دھرنے پہ بیٹھے رہے, اور ان کو اللیگل طریقوں سے اٹھا لیا گیا, ان کو گرفتار کیے گئے اور ان کو مجبور کیا گیا کہ وہ دھرنا چھوڑ کر چلے جائیں. ایک ڈائلاگ کروایا گیا کیونکہ گورنمنٹ آف پاکستان کی نو پالیسی والی سچویشن کی وجہ سے سب پریشان تھے, اور بھٹو شہید فاؤنڈیشن اور ہم والنٹیئرز نے ایک ڈائلاگ کروایا جس کے گورنمنٹ کے اور ریفیوجیز کے درمیان, جس کے نتیجے میں ایک ہیومن رائٹس اسٹینڈنگ کمیٹی تک یہ ایشو ہم لے کر چلے گئے. ایز اے ریزلٹ ایک بل بھی مارچ 2023 میں محسن داور صاحب نے پیش کیا, جو جس کو نظر انداز کیا گیا, اس پہ بحث نہیں کیا گیا. خواتین اسپیسیفک بہت سارے مسائل ہیں. ریکمنڈیشنز ویری کوئک کہ پولیٹیکل پارٹیز شوڈ ٹاک آن دس ویری امپورٹنٹ ایشو, اور جو ایک ڈسکنیکٹ ہے اس کو ختم کیا جائے, قانون سازی ہو, اور فارنرز رجسٹریشن ایکٹ کو ری وزٹ کیا جائے, UNHCR اور ایسے دوسرے اداروں کو انیبل کیا جائے کہ وہ اپنا کام کریں. اگر مہاجرین کو واپس بھیجنے کا فیصلہ ہوتا ہے تو ان کو باقاعدہ پلاننگ کے ساتھ اور ان کو ڈگنیفائڈ طریقے سے پلاننگ کر کے بھیجا جائے, اور 1 اکتوبر 2023 کو جو فیصلہ کیا گیا ہے کہ مہاجرین کو واپس بھیجا ہے, دس از ان ہیومن رائٹس وائلیشنز ہے یہ افغان ریفیوجیز کے حوالے سے, اور ہم اس کی مذمت کرتے ہیں اور چاہتے ہیں کہ مطالبہ کرتے ہیں کہ حکومت پاکستان اس مسئلے کو ہمدردانہ اور انسان دوستانہ طریقے سے دیکھے. سوری ٹو ٹیک یور ٹائم.
It's clear what we are seeing from all the speakers is that there is no rest, there is no respite for the Hazara population and for other minorities in Afghanistan at the moment. Majorities include women, of course, children whose education has been stopped, and this refugee crisis only adds to the terrible hardships that Afghans have to go through. I'm going to ask now another activist, the CEO of SHARP, the Society for Human Rights and Prisoners' Aid, to come up to the microphone perhaps and explain what they're doing in aid of the Afghan refugees.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the organizers of this conference, and I would really appreciate to add this very important session of expulsion of refugees in this conference. And we are here, we are gathered here to pay homage to a star icon, Miss Asma Jahangir, who inspires us all, and she was the champion of human rights, democracy, and human rights. Thank you very much. Most of the things have been already said by my colleagues, but I have got only 5 minutes to talk about expulsion of Afghan refugees, but the history is so long. We have been hosting generously to Afghan refugees from last 40 years, and all the government and people of Pakistan has contributed and sacrificed their resources, their places, their homes, shared everything with Afghan refugees. But the things happening, developing right now is not right time and the right way to send them as enemies. I mean, if we don't sit with the international community, with the sport, we have been accommodating them for years. It would add pressure, it would not go in our ways if we like send them as forcefully as we are doing. And there are policies which are not discussed or like not properly planned for durable solution in this region. I wish we could have discussed all these things with the international colleagues and international community, UN systems. Proper planning could have been done, but as Afridi Saab mentioned, we have a couple of waves of Afghan refugees who came to Pakistan. The first wave was in late 70s and early 80s, and the second was in 90s, and third was in 2000, and the last wave after regime change in Kabul was in 2021, where nearly 700,000 Afghans came to Pakistan, but unfortunately we don't had any policy how to accommodate them, provide them legal assistance, registration or anything. And they have been like waiting for their fate. And this also put a question mark on international community, because most of the people who came in Pakistan in last wave in 2021, they came here on the promises of international community, many high commissions, embassies or international organizations with whom these Afghans were working. And many of them were women, civil society actors, sportswomen and other colleagues. But you know, Pakistan doesn't have any law, and still we are accommodating millions of Afghan refugees. But this is the right time to sit with the international community and place some recommendation and suggestions to create flexible visa regime to speed up their cases which are delayed in other countries. They are waiting for resettlement. Unfortunately, here in, if you see that Afghans' fate have been not only here in this region, they have never been given that opportunity. They can only repatriate. They are very limited of resettlement for them. There is no integration as we don't have any law, and their issues are escalating there, and especially women and children are suffering a lot. There is no job opportunities here for them. And we are working in Afghanistan as well, and there is no infrastructure, proper infrastructure, schools, hospitals, things like that in Afghanistan. If we are sending them like that forcefully, that might create statelessness for the people who will give, because they don't have ID card or registration here, and when they go back, they might not have those documentation and passports or whatever the, so we really need, it's very sensitive matter, and we are sharing border with Afghanistan, and we have to live with them next, like how many years. That's why we should not send them as enemies, we should send them as friends, and we should invest resources, put some, cause nearly 64% of the people, young people in Afghan communities, we need to add resources, bring more resource allocation for skill development. So if they go back to Afghanistan, if they stay here or travel to any other country, they must have some skills to contribute. And we have been lacking that. We couldn't get any benefits from these communities because they have rich culture, rich history, and they have been positively contributing in Pakistan's economy. So if we don't take consideration or think wisely at this time, they might be like going in the hands of other people who can use them in wrongful activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I much appreciate your very practical suggestions, and I hope the diplomats and the UN organizations that are here today will consider these very practical efforts to try and improve the situation. We now come to one of our key speakers, Ms. Christine Chung, who's from the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights of the United Nations. If you'd come up to the platform. It's very important that we get the support of the Human Rights Commission for human rights, and I know the work that Christine Chung has done in order to improve the chances of that happening. Please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the organizers of my favorite conference in Pakistan, the Asma Jahangir conference. I look forward to this every year. I'm here to speak about Pakistan's international human rights law obligations. Pakistan is state party to 7 core international human rights treaties. That means that Pakistan voluntarily ratified these conventions, and as part of that, it accepted legally binding obligations. Part of the process is to report on progress of implementing these treaties and receiving recommendations on the implementation progress from the expert committees that are attached to each of these human rights treaties. 6 of the committees recently reviewed Pakistan in Geneva. 5 of these committees explicitly speak to the situation of Afghan refugees and migrants in Pakistan. The CEDAW committee, the committee that oversees the implementation of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, spoke more generally about the situation of refugees in Pakistan. So for those of you who are not using this for your bedtime reading material, I'm just going to remind you of what the committees have said about Pakistan's obligations under international human rights law regarding Afghans. And so one example was the Committee on the Rights of the Child in 2016 made this observation about Pakistan. Although the committee appreciates that the state party continues to host a large number of refugees, especially from Afghanistan, it regrets the lack of a legal framework for refugees and stateless persons. It also remains concerned that refugee children are often unregistered, especially those whose parents do not hold proof of registration cards and have no access to education, which forces them to join madrasas, live in harsh conditions, and are subjected to child labor and early marriages, making them easy targets for abuse, trafficking, and religious radicalization. Furthermore, the committee is concerned that children from Bengali, Bihari, and Rohingya communities remain stateless. The recommendation that the committee made to the government of Pakistan at the time in 2016, the committee recommends that the state party take all